Hey, so this is my birth experience having Ocean video. Now, if you have been following me at all, you probably know my views on birth. I have always been very outspoken about like having a midwife, having a doula, uh, just even unassisted birth. I pretty much advocated for everything except a hospital birth. And not because I completely just, I honestly, actually, if I'm being honest, I really did look down on hospital births before I had a baby. And that was just mostly due to my knowledge of them. And yeah, that was just what I had known, was just like all the negative things about them, and I still don't like them, but I realized there is a place for everything. Uh Anyways, so yeah, let's get into it. On Actually, I probably should have made notes. Whatever. So he was born on a Saturday, technically. September 26th. And since that Monday, I had been experiencing some signs of labor. I had been losing my mucus plug, and I had been having like inconsistent contractions. Now, my aunt, who also had a baby, the week before Ocean was born, so that Sunday before I started showing signs of labor, she had taken castor oil to induce herself. I had always been against this, and I honestly feel sort of guilty that I even tried it. But I got like some weird feeling of just needing to have Ocean here because my aunt just had her baby, and I was like, I want to hold my baby, like, I want to meet him. So I tried to take some castor oil. And the first night I tried that, I think it was maybe Tuesday. I think it might have been Tuesday. I can't remember. Tuesday or Wednesday. And it started giving me contractions that were very inconsistent. And then for a while, there were ones that were every like 5 to 10 minutes, maybe. And I, at one point, ended up getting in the bathtub here in my apartment because they were just like, they were getting pretty painful. One of them I felt literally, it was like somebody was stabbing me, and I just like kind of screamed in the bathtub. And I remember I was like FaceTiming my grandma, and I have to check on something I have in the oven. But anyways, so nothing ever came of it. I was up all night, probably until like 5 a.m. or something like that. And I didn't end up having him, which when I was experiencing the contractions and stuff, I was like, okay, like tonight's the night. So, you know, McCrae and I were like ready. I had all my stuff. I had ordered everything online that I had needed to have a home birth, all the supplies. And my bedroom was set up with like towels and blankets and whatever. So nothing ended up happening. Disappointed. The next day, I went over to my aunt's house and was visiting her and the baby, and she's like, you just didn't take enough castor oil. I only took like 1 or 2 tablespoons, maybe 1. And, you know, it makes you like shit like crazy and gives you cramps. So anyways, she was like, you need to take more. Oh, it made me throw up too, like to the point that I was like dry heaving. It was so awful. So I was like, I don't know if I can do this again. Like, that made me feel so awful. So I tried it again, and I took 2 doses. I think I took one in the late afternoon, and then I took another one in the evening. And again, sort of like the same thing happened, like inconsistent contractions. I think this was like Thursday. Yeah, that was like Thursday. And so Wednesday or Thursday, I can't remember. And so whatever, the day goes by, the night goes by, again, inconsistent contractions, and I was just like, whatever, like, I'm not gonna do anything. So Friday comes, and Friday, the night before, I had some contractions through the night that were waking me up at like 4 a.m. and they were going on for like a few hours. And then, sorry, I need to blow my nose a little bit. Anyways, and then Friday night comes, and like earlier that day, we went for a walk. We walked to the park and stuff, and I sort of had a few contractions on the way there, and I was like, okay, but then we went home and like I tried some different positions because I felt like he was engaged, but I didn't feel, I guess maybe I did have a sense that he wasn't in the right position. Anyway, so then I didn't really feel anything after that. So then the evening comes and I'm starting to have contractions, and then by like 10 or 11, they were from like every 5 to 10 minutes to like every 2 to 5 minutes. And so this was the 25th, the night of the 25th. And so they started coming every 2 to 5 minutes for a little bit. And then at one point they changed to every 2 minutes. And I was laboring like in the bathroom, in the bedroom, just swaying back and forth. I was laboring on the toilet. That actually seemed to be my favorite way to labor throughout my whole experience. And so my mom was on FaceTime with me, like just talking to me through my contractions and stuff, and McCray was there and he was comforting me. But at one point it just felt like nothing was changing. I think from 11 to 4 or 5 a.m. I labored at home, and at one point I checked my own cervix to see how far I was dilated, and based on what I read online, like how to tell, I was about 4 centimeters. So then it got to a point where I was just like in so much pain, and I felt like it wasn't progressing the way that it was supposed to, and maybe I was impatient, but I just felt like I couldn't handle the contractions anymore because they were so consistent and so frequent that it was making me exhausted. So at around, what time, Boob, do you think that we went to the hospital again? Like 4:30?
I think it was around
5? Okay, so around 5, we left to go to the hospital. And of course I was having contractions all the way there. And before we left, I started crying because obviously leaving and going to the hospital was not part of my plan. That was the last thing that I wanted to do. I felt like I was a failure and like I had given up and like I just wasn't strong enough. And so I cried the whole way to the hospital, and walking into the hospital, and I felt very stressed out because I just didn't feel comfortable there, and I didn't feel necessarily like safe, I guess. So we got to the hospital a little after 5, and then I got checked in. The doctor checked my cervix. I let him do that, and I was 4 centimeters. And then they got me into a room, and shortly after we got there, the nurse's shift changed at like 7 a.m. So I got this nurse named, crap, what was her name? Was it like Julie? Was our nurse's name Julie?
Yep, there was 2 Julies.
Yeah. So our nurse's name was Julie, and she was incredibly awesome and nice. Like I don't think I could have done it without her. She had experience, like we talked a little bit, she had experience as a doula, and she also had tried for a home birth a long time ago. Her kids are like grown now, I think, and she ended up in the hospital. So she had a lot of understanding for me and what I was trying to do. And she was just like super helpful and comforting. She was like rubbing my shoulders. She was talking me through like relaxing because I was tensing up so much. And anyway, she was just really there for every single moment, and like I don't think that I could have done it if she hadn't been there to help me. So when we got there, I was still having contractions every 2 minutes, and that literally didn't stop until he was born. Probably at one point they were even more frequent than that. But after like an hour or so of being in labor, maybe it was longer than that, because I feel like it wasn't until noon that we started interventions. if I'm not mistaken. So time, I guess, went by really fast. I don't know. I wasn't paying attention. But around noon, I think, I let them check me. Maybe it was a little before that. I let them check me because I just wanted to know that I was progressing. And I think she had said I was maybe still, well, at one point I changed from 4 to 6. And then for a while, it just stayed like a 6 to maybe a 7. And it was getting to the point where I just couldn't take it anymore. Like, I felt like I was going to pass out. I was exhausted. I hadn't slept at all. It kind of felt like I was in like a haze. Everything just felt really weird. Like, all I could focus on obviously was like the pain and having the baby. So everything around me was just like, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. Probably what they call like the birth land or whatever that they say that women go into when they're in labor. And so around noon, they checked me again and they said that I was only like a 6 or a 7 still. And I just felt so disappointed because I was in such pain and I wasn't handling my contractions well at all because I was just so exhausted. And it wasn't like they were getting worse. I was just getting so tired that I couldn't keep dealing with them. And so I let them break my water and I felt so awful about that. Like, I literally, but I just couldn't keep doing it. Although I think this made it worse because even the doctor told me that once they break my water, there isn't going to be like that cushion anymore from the fluid. And so it will be just his head pressing down, but that it will hopefully progress things more. So I was like, okay, whatever. Total regret. It definitely hurt more. And so that went on for maybe like an hour or so. And then I was like, can we please get me checked again? Like, I can't do this. I was like, obviously in the midst of like being totally out of it and just in total pain. I asked my nurse what pain management options I had because I just felt so defeated. Like, I was like on the verge of like tears constantly and just like swaying back and forth and going to the toilet, and like she was doing counter pressure on my back, and like I was screaming like through every contraction. Like, it was bad. And so she said at this point I couldn't get any like painkillers administered through like an IV or whatever because it would affect Ocean. Not that epidurals don't, but just in a different way. And so she said that my only option was an epidural. And I just was like in my mind thinking like, I don't know how I'm going to survive any more contractions. Like, obviously I have to until they give me some drugs, but like it literally just felt like I was dying. I know that's so dramatic, but that is how it felt. It was pain. I felt like I was being stabbed, like somebody was trying to rip my pelvis apart. And I don't know what would have made that experience better. I don't know how people do it. Maybe my next baby will be a totally different experience because I know that can happen, but it was just awful. And there was not one part that I liked about it. So I just told her like, I want the epidural. And then when the guy came in, the anesthesiologist came in to give me my epidural, I literally was having the contractions. It seemed like almost every 30 seconds to a minute. And I couldn't even talk to him. Like, he was asking me questions, and like before I could even answer, I was having another contraction. And so he was like, all right, I'm just gonna go get my stuff. He went and got it. And when he left to go get it, I was on the bed and I was just like bawling my eyes out because I felt so guilty that I was getting an epidural because I always like speak against them and I didn't want that. And I just kept feeling like every single thing that I didn't want to happen was happening to me. Like, I didn't want to have a hospital birth. I ended up in the hospital. I didn't want to have any cervical checks and I let them check me. I didn't want to have any interventions. I let them break my water. Now I'm getting an epidural. And so I'm sitting there and I'm crying and my nurse is like, you know, like, you don't have to get an epidural. Like, you can keep going. And I was just like, no, I can't. Like, I was crying my eyes out. She got me like a washcloth and I'm like wiping my face and I'm just like, I can't do it anymore. And she's like, you are doing it. Like, she was being very, very encouraging and very understanding. But I think she like could see the pain and the turmoil that I was feeling over these decisions that I was making. And so she was just trying to remind me that I don't have to go through with them if I don't want to. But then she was like, you know, you don't have to tell anybody that you got an epidural. Like, it can just be a secret that you and I know. And obviously, you know, the doctors or whatever. And so that was funny and nice of her to say, but I just am not that kind of person. Like, I don't want to lie about my experience. And so he came back in with all this stuff to put the epidural in. And the worst part about the epidural, like, I didn't even think it hurt for him to put it in, but the worst part about it is that you have to hold still while he's giving it to you. And my contractions were so frequent and so fucking painful that I was literally like, I had a pillow in front of me. You have to bend over in this weird, awkward position. And then you're having contractions on top of that. So it feels like my back is breaking and my hips and all of this stuff. And like, I'm dying and they're making me curl up. And then you have to sit still. So I was just like screaming while it was happening. At least in my head, I feel like I was screaming really loud. I think I was really loud, right? I was pretty loud.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. I felt like I was very loud. Like, I felt like everyone there could hear me, but I don't know. So anyways, I have to hold still while he's doing it. It's awful. I'm just thinking like, oh my gosh, please hurry up. Like, I want to feel these drugs. I don't want to feel one more contraction. And so I think I had to go through like 2 or 3 more before I felt any type of like numbness. And then after that, it kind of all went away. I guess I had like a button I could have pressed to administer more, but I never did. So after he first gave it to me, he told me that, sorry, I just burped also. But after he gave it to me, he told me that he gave me extra to help right away. And I think I fell asleep for like an hour, and that was the most sleep I'd had in like 2 days. And so, yeah, I fell asleep for like an hour. I woke up and I think my epidural was slowly starting to wear off because I was definitely feeling more pressure and pain. And then I got checked and I was about like 8 centimeters, I think. Almost 8. Well, it was like 8 or 9, but then it stayed that way for probably about an hour and a half or so, maybe a little longer than that. I don't remember. So we're around 2 p.m. now. And they start having me do like different positions. She like got the peanut ball, my nurse did. She got the peanut ball for me. And we were like, you know, elevating my leg and stuff because they said that I still had like a lip. And my cervix, you know, needed to dilate a little bit more to have that go away before I could start pushing, which also obviously I've been so against coach pushing and like being told what to do, but at this point I was just like so not in the right headspace to like advocate for myself or to even like think about everything that I knew because there was just like so much discomfort. So I started to feel more pressure and I was like, can I get checked again? And still again, she said there was a little bit more lip, and so we continued to use the peanut ball. And then by the time that I was 10 centimeters, I was definitely feeling the pressure. It was not delightful at all. And they started to coach me on pushing, which I didn't really want to do, but also I was so uncomfortable. I just wanted to get him out of my body. And so like they kept telling me to like hold my breath and hold my legs, and I was trying to do that, but I was so exhausted. I couldn't even hold my breath for very long because I was going to pass out. Like they're yelling, they're like, hold your breath, like it'll make it much more effective, blah blah blah. And I'm literally yelling back at them. I'm like, I can't hold my breath, like I'm gonna faint. I'm so tired, I can't do this. And they're like, no, you can do this, like keep going. And so I asked if I could push in different positions. So the nurse advocated for me to get the squat bar. So they put the squat bar on the bed and I started pushing in the squatting position. And then I kind of went back and forth between the squatting position and laying on my back because I was just so exhausted. Like I could only do it for so long. And I think I pushed for like an hour. It really didn't feel that long. Like at this point when I'm pushing, like I kid you not, it felt like I was on drugs or something. Like I just wasn't fully there. And all I know is it was just like something took over and I just kept pushing and kept pushing and kept pushing. And that's the only thing that I was able to focus on. And I could feel him when he was crowning and they were like, oh, good. Yeah. Rest right here. Like it's good to, pause and let everything stretch out. And I was like, I can't, like, I just want him out. And I kept pushing, against their recommendation, because I couldn't stop at that point. Like I was just like, no, he needs to get out of my body right now. I'm in pain. I want this to end. And so finally, when he came out, it didn't feel real, like at all. Like I remember seeing him, and I think this is too where I feel like sort of disappointed in my experience as well as all the other shit that took place. But I just didn't feel euphoric, like at all. And I remember like them handing him to me and I just like was looking at him and like rubbing him and holding him, but I didn't feel like, oh wow, this is my baby, or like, wow, this is amazing. I just was like, okay, I'm not in pain anymore, and like, oh my gosh, my baby's here. Like it was just very weird. And then everything going on around you, and like I wanted to do delayed cord clamping, but I don't think that I got to wait very long, and I just at that point kind of gave up on my wishes because I had already gone through everything else that I didn't really want to experience. So when she was like, is this long enough, like can we cut the cord, I was just like, fine, whatever. Definitely regret that, but they let me keep the placenta. And I will say that the doctor was very kind and thoughtful. They definitely asked for consent before they did anything every time, and I put all of the things in my birth plan that I didn't want or that they needed to ask first, type of thing, and she definitely followed that. Like whenever she asked me something, she'd be like, I know you put that you didn't want this, is it okay, like will you allow us to, or blah 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 blah. So I do think that was pretty cool of the doctor to be a good human. And so after that, I guess since then feel like I've kind of avoided talking about my birthing experience, and I have avoided all things birth because I probably haven't processed it completely and accepted it, and I kind of just like am not happy with how everything turned out. And so I didn't even want to think about it. And at this point, I probably still have some processing to do. But yeah, I guess that's it. Overall, I wish that I didn't end up at the hospital, but at the same time, I feel like in a way that's what I needed. He came out sunny side up, and I just don't think that I could have labored that long and that intensely at home with just McCrae and I. I just wasn't prepared for that. And so, yeah, I think I included everything. There were other shitty things that happened at the hospital after his birth, but this video is already really long, so I'll talk about that a different time. All right. Thanks for listening.